All right, so are you ready to dive into a question I'm pretty sure everyone listening has thought about at least once in their dating life?
Sounds intriguing.
It is. How do men actually know when a woman is flirting with them?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and we're going to find out using the wisdom of Reddit, of course.
Of course, Reddit. Or else the source of all knowledge.
Exactly. So we're going to be tackling a thread on Rask Men Advice, where a woman asked this very question.
Okay.
And the responses were, well, let's just say they were over 500 shades of bewilderment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
500 shades of bewilderment?
Men are bewildered.
Interesting.
Yeah, they don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know if women are flirting with them.
That's fascinating.
It is, and some responses were so out there.
Okay.
It was almost performance art.
Like what?
Like one guy said his wife had to basically stage a striptease in front of him before he got the hint.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying men might not be the masters of deciphering subtle cues that we've always kind of assumed they were?
You could say that. Yeah. So,
Interesting.
but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's break down the main theme that kept popping up in these Reddit responses.
Okay.
What I like to call the just being nice defense.
Okay. The just being nice defense.
It seems like a lot of men default to thinking any friendly behavior is just that friendly.
Just friendly.
So like she's smiling at me, she's making eye contact, she's joking around with me, she's being nice.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, well, she's just being nice.
Right.
That must be it.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
I wonder if this stems from a fear of misinterpreting signals.
Right.
You know, social psychology tells us that men are often conditioned to avoid behaviors that could be perceived as overstepping boundaries, especially in a romantic context.
Yeah. So it's like they'd rather err on the side of caution and miss out on a potential connection than risk coming across as, well, creepy.
Exactly. And this ties into the broader discussion we've been having on the show about how societal expectations can impact interpersonal dynamics. It's like there's this invisible script that men feel pressured to follow, even if it means missing out on clear signs of interest.
Right. And so then you have, on the other hand, the guys that went beyond just being nice in their responses.
Okay.
And they were downright hilarious.
Okay.
It's like one guy said he needs a notarized document to confirm that someone is actually flirting with him.
He needs it in writing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So clearly humor is the weapon of choice here.
It's a classic defense mechanism, right?
Yeah.
When faced with a potentially awkward or emotionally charged situation, humor can be a way to diffuse tension and avoid vulnerability.
Right.
It's like saying, hey, I'm not taking this too seriously, even if deep down they actually are.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't cracked a joke to cover up a blush or an awkward silence?
Right, exactly.
But if we're being honest, all this reliance on humor and avoiding directness, it doesn't exactly paint a rosy picture of communication between the sexes.
You're right. And this is where the Reddit thread starts to offer some valuable insights, even if they're delivered with a healthy dose of self-deprecation.
Yes, it does. Okay.
Yeah, it's like they need a neon sign to flash like I'm flirting with you before they even consider the possibility.
You know, it occurs to me as we're talking about this that there's another layer of complexity here we haven't really talked about.
What's that?
It's the fear of misinterpretation.
Oh.
Like, so many guys in the thread were talking about this anxiety of reading a situation wrong
Right.
and then facing negative consequences. Like, they're terrified of being seen as creepy or disrespectful.
And that fear, unfortunately, isn't unfounded.
Right.
I mean, we live in a time where awareness of consent and respectful communication is heightened,
Right.
which is a good thing.
Yes, of course.
But it's also created this climate where men are understandably cautious about making any moves that could be misconstrued.
Yeah, it's like they're walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing themselves. One guy even joked that he needs a lawyer to serve him papers confirming a woman's interest before he'll believe it's real.
Wow.
It's funny.
But it's funny.
But it speaks to a very real anxiety.
Yeah.
Think about it. In the past, men were often encouraged to be persistent,
Right.
to not take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
But now that same persistence can be interpreted as harassment.
Right. Or worse.
Or worse. It's like a complete shift in the whole dating landscape.
Exactly.
There's this delicate dance between being respectful
Right.
and avoiding misinterpretations, but then somehow still picking up on these subtle cues that women are supposedly so good at sending.
Yeah.
So no wonder some men feel lost at sea.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where the crux of the issue is. We've
Yeah.
created this societal expectation that men should be mind readers,
Right.
that they should just know when a woman is interested without any clear
Right.
signals.
Like they should just know.
Yes, and then when they get it wrong, the consequences can be severe.
It's like we're setting them up to fail.
Yeah.
We tell them to be assertive, but also cautious,
Mm-hmm.
to read between the lines, but don't make assumptions.
Right.
It's a recipe for confusion and inaction.
Precisely. And I
Yeah.
think this is why so many men in the thread are advocating for a more straightforward approach.
Okay.
Direct communication.
Just say what you mean.
Exactly. No more guessing games. No more relying on subtle hints.
Right.
Just say what you mean and mean what you say.
And you know what? A lot of women in the thread were saying the same thing.
Really?
They were tired of dropping hints that went unnoticed,
Yeah.
of having to play coy, when really what they wanted was to just be upfront about their feelings.
It's a refreshing change, don't you think?
I think so.
This desire for authenticity and clarity.
Yeah.
It seems like both men and women are starting to realize that beating around the bush just leads to frustration and missed opportunities.
Totally. And it makes you wonder if all those traditional flirting techniques,
Mm-hmm.
the batting of eyelashes and coy smiles, are they even effective anymore?
Yeah.
Or are they just remnants of a bygone era?
Perhaps. But I think the larger takeaway here is that we need to shift the conversation away from these subtle games
Okay.
and towards a more honest and respectful approach to dating.
Yeah.
An approach that prioritizes clear communication, vulnerability, and mutual understanding.
Well said. And speaking of clear communication,
Yes.
I think it's time we shifted gears and explore some of the practical advice that emerged from this Reddit thread.
Okay, good.
Because amidst all this confusion and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
there were actually some gems of wisdom that came out of this.
I like it.
Okay, so we've talked about the anxieties and the humor and the desperate need for clear communication.
We have.
But what does it all mean
Right.
for the average person out there
Yeah.
who's trying to navigate this dating jungle?
Exactly.
What are the actual takeaways here?
Well, amidst the sea of just be direct comments,
Yeah.
there were some surprisingly nuanced insights.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for example, several men talked about the importance of physical touch. Oh, okay.
Obviously not anything invasive,
Right.
but a light touch on the arm, a playful nudge.
Yeah.
These can apparently speak volumes.
Interesting. It's like a way of bridging the gap between the verbal and the nonverbal,
Exactly.
adding a little emphasis to those flirting signals.
Exactly. And it's not just about initiating touch.
Okay.
Pay attention to how he responds.
Right.
Does he lean in? Does he reciprocate the gesture?
Right.
These can be subtle but powerful indicators of interest.
Okay. So touch can be a good gauge.
Right.
What else?
Mirroring body language came up quite a bit.
Okay.
Men were saying that if a woman is into them, she'll often subconsciously mimic their posture, their gestures, even their tone of voice.
Right.
It's a fascinating example of how our bodies betray our feelings even when we're trying to play it cool.
That's so true. I've definitely caught myself doing that when I'm around someone I like.
Right.
It's like our bodies are trying to create that sense of connection. Like, hey, we're on the same wavelength here.
Exactly. And this goes both ways, of course.
Right. So if you're trying to figure out if he's into you,
Yeah.
pay attention to his body language. Is he mirroring yours?
Right.
Could be a sign that there's something brewing beneath the surface.
Body language touch. It's like learning a secret code.
Right.
But what about the actual conversation?
Yeah.
Any tips for navigating those potentially awkward first interactions?
One recurring piece of advice was to simply ask questions.
Okay.
Genuine questions show interest in him,
Yeah.
his passions, his experiences.
Okay.
Not only does this demonstrate that you're engaged,
Right.
but it also gives you valuable information about whether you're actually compatible.
I love that.
Yeah,
It takes the pressure off trying to be witty or impressive
exactly.
and just allows you to connect on a more authentic level.
Exactly.
Plus, you learn a lot more about him than you would by just batting your eyelashes
Right.
and hoping for the best.
And this brings us back to the theme of authenticity,
Hmm.
which was emphasized over and over again in the thread. Both men and women were saying that ultimately the best way to attract someone is to simply be yourself.
Right.
No games, no facades, just genuine connection.
It sounds so simple,
It does.
but in today's age,
Yeah,
it's so easy to lose sight of that.
absolutely. And that's why this deep dive has been so insightful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that while the dating landscape may have evolved,
Yeah.
the fundamental principles of attraction remain the same.
Right.
Honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to connect on a human level.
Well said. So to all our listeners out there, whether you're a seasoned dater or just starting to dip your toes in the romantic waters, remember this.
Yes,
Clear communication, authenticity, and a dash of confidence are your most powerful tools.
I love it. And maybe a well-placed touch on the arm wouldn't hurt.
There you go. Giving away all the secrets.
I know.
But seriously, I think this Reddit thread has given us a lot to think about.
I agree.
It's a reminder that communication, especially when it comes to romance,
Yes.
is a constant work in progress.
It is. And the more we understand each other's perspectives, the more likely we are to create those meaningful connections.
So true. So to our listeners, if you're enjoying these deep dives into the complexities of human behavior, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button.
Yes, please do.
And if you're craving even more thought-provoking content, be sure to check out the Shauna Plage YouTube channel.
Yes.
We're exploring all sorts of fascinating topics over there, from psychology to spirituality to pop culture.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. And we love connecting with you and learning from your insights.
We do.
So keep the conversation going on our social media channel.
Yes, please.
Let us know your thoughts on this episode, your own dating experiences, and what you'd like us to explore next.
Yeah, we love hearing from you.
Until then, happy dating. And remember, sometimes the most direct path to love is simply saying, hey, I'm into you.
Absolutely.